Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribe Star. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much.
So, hey, hello everybody. Welcome to the Red Pill Nation Hangout. I am your host and somewhat tired, but but good to go. Good to go for tonight. Host the Roki Five with me tonight, and we'll start in order of who's going to go first. I can go first, but coming all the way from Great Britain, Mark Edworthy. Introduce yourself.
Hi, another person who's quite tired, to be fair. I'm Mark. I specialise in technical support and general politics and on minds.com/Medworthy.
All right, and of course, one of almost a regular at this point, Roger Hansen. Roger?
I think he got lost on finding coffee.
Okay, well, since Roger doesn't appear to be available right now, Roger, let us know when you're. Let us know when you're available.
Here.
Oh, there you are. All right, Roger, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Roger Hansen. You can find me usually on Skype, Discord. I'm on minds.com as well as on X. And I'm usually streaming on Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, stuff like that.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, well, I mean, actually, technically, I haven't posted up anything at that Patreon for a while. I am at Patreon as Naroki5. I'm going to have to get that Patreon back up and running here. I am at the following in order of the number of subs I've got: BitChute, MGTOW TV, Odyssey, Rumble, Brighteon, and YouTube. I am also at Minds, Gab, MeWe, Facebook, and Getter. I still am. Yeah, I keep saying at some point I'm actually moving into a new place here at the end of the month. So if I got a couple weeks to play with. So who knows? Maybe I will get around to finally getting some shows up at least at Spotify. We'll see. There was what the hell was it? Yeah, group site news. Yes, I have finally, after probably about 13-14 months, I have finally started posting back up on a regular basis at Minds, Gab, and MeWe. Though not as many groups, I am surprised at how many groups have just ceased to exist on those platforms in the year that I've been gone. So I'm actually, as I'm going through the various groups on those sites, I'm cutting down. What really blew my mind is the number of how much quieter Minds has gotten, or at least appears to have gotten in the last few months. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, that's the site news for now. And yeah, I'm moving here at the end of the month to a new location. It's just down the street from where I'm currently living. Hopefully there won't be any discontinuation of the show, at least for a week. I think I've missed 2 shows since I've missed 2. Yeah, I've missed 2 shows since I've been on. So it's not like I miss a lot of shows here. But yeah, hopefully nothing happens. Hopefully I'm able to get both shows in for the end of October and the beginning of November. But we'll see. Sometimes you're just happy for the break. So the topics for tonight, topic number 1, Joker movie sequel is not doing well. Topic number 2, Democrats, specifically Hillary Clinton, now openly calling for repeal of Section 230. That one, by the way, seems to be a pattern which is emerging in one form or another in literally all of the Five Eyes governments. That one's got to make for some very interesting discussion. Topic number 3, Caitlin Clark is leaving the WNBA. That one is going to be really interesting to talk about. 4 is a Canada-specific one, so I may have to give you guys a bit of a brief on it. Jessica Yaniv is back, files complaint with the BC Human Rights Commission, and they're following through on it, filed on December 21st, 2021. It's against Ezra Levant and Rebel Media, if you know who those even are. Topic number 5, Line in the Sand, a movie or a documentary done by James O'Keefe, released. Revelations about the border situation are really actually kind of shocking. Topic number 6, Kamala Harris appears to be melting down as constant mistakes now of Trump leading in all swing states but Wisconsin. Just giving you a heads up, 404 is going to be very politics heavy. I'll get into some more details about that after I finish all of the topics. And topic number 7, Sweet Baby Inc. scrubs its website, hiding its clients from public view. Yeah, I think Mark probably knows who about Sweet Baby Inc., but that's another interesting one. Now, in regards to topic number 6, given what is going on in the U.S. and given our proximity to the U.S., I have really kind of been, only if it's a really like major highlight, say like the debate between Trump and Harris, or the original debate between Trump and Biden. For the most part, I have been avoiding getting too much into the U.S. political situation, but as we're getting closer, and as the race, and well, I'm just going to say, as people get smarter about Harris, things are getting really bad for Harris. But yeah, next week, 404 is very politically heavy. Just giving you a heads up on that right now. Just because we're like, what, 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks away from the election at this point. So yeah, it's kind of hard to
and
not.
It feels like it's going to be a long 3 weeks, really long 3 weeks.
Oh my God, it's going to be it's going to be brutally long. Good God, I'm having nightmares just thinking about it. But anyway, let's just get into topic number 1, which is the Joker movie.
You should see it out there. They're all going crazy for you. They're saying you're a bad influence on me. Well, guess what?
That's life. Funny as it seems, some people get their kicks just stepping on a dream.
You are no different than any of those people that underestimated me.
Also, don't do this to yourself. It isn't you.
It isn't me. So you don't think this is me? Well, maybe you don't know who I really was.
Arthur Fleck is a monster, and his depraved acts led to riots all over the country.
Everything's gonna work out. You're Joker.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
We're gonna build a mountain. You should see it out there. They're all going crazy for you. They're saying you're a bad influence on me. Well, guess what?
That's life. Funny as it seems, some people get their kicks just stepping on a dream.
You are no different than any of those people that underestimated me.
Also, don't tell us yourself. It isn't you.
It isn't me. So you don't think this is me? Well, maybe you don't know who I really was.
Arthur Fleck is a monster. And his depraved acts led to riots all over the country.
Everything's gonna work out. You're Joker.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
We're gonna build a mountain.
Now, I actually did go see this movie. Mostly because, for one, I will see almost anything when it gets into the movie theaters. But two, when it came specifically to the Joker movie, I wanted to go and see it for myself as opposed to being told what it was like. And I went and I saw it. It's definitely not as good as the original Joker. That much I will say right now. I will call it... It's got a somewhat musical theme to it. It was a interesting experiment in filmmaking. The pieces... The story itself appears to be pretty well written and well rounded, and the characters seem to be pretty polished, but for whatever reason, the story just didn't lock together. I think maybe they could have benefited with a little bit more runtime and a little bit more character development. The end of the movie was a bit of a surprise, but if you watched the whole movie like I did, like how it ended, the character who was going to eventually stab the Joker was highlighted on a couple of occasions. Yes, it just really... I'm not going to call it a woke disaster because it didn't actually play into the woke stereotypes all that much. Lady Gaga did not do a bad job with her character. In fact, she did okay. Not as good as obviously the guy who played the Joker, but I mean, I'm just going to say it. The movie had a lot of the right elements, but I think they either rushed it a little bit or they didn't develop the story. Yeah, I think it maybe was rushed a little bit, and they pushed it through before it was ready because the story elements and the whole thing just kind of was like disjointed, and a lot of it didn't make. It just didn't mesh. So I'm going to give Joker a 5.5 out of 10. Worth going to the movie theater to see, and I mean, like me, for instance, I will probably buy the DVD just to put into my collection. But in terms of it being something that you will go to again and again and again, absolutely not. It's not bad, but it's definitely not good either. It was just unremarkable. I am going to give kudos, though, to the writer and the director for at least attempting to be experimental and not make this movie so formulaic. But it just didn't come together. And that's probably about the best way I can describe it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Okay, I've only seen one review, and that was only a 10-minute review, to be fair. But the conclusion was reviewed by a Australian commentator that I watch quite a lot, and do have some, let's say, trust in his opinion. As far as he was concerned, it was, as you say, fairly disjointed, and in quite a lot of areas, just dull.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you thought so.
Yeah, dull. Thank you. That would be the word that would describe it. There just wasn't anything that popped. Yes, thank you. Hello?
Again, it was only a very short review, so I can't really say anything more unless I watch it myself. Again, I'm not really a big fan of the sort of Marvel DC modern sort of spins anyway, so it's not really my sort of cup of tea, so to speak.
Well, here's the really weird thing. This is not your typical superhero, like Marvel DC style movie. That was what made the original Joker movie so interesting, as it was like a really distinct contrast to the stuff that had come out before from DC, which is really strange. But if you haven't seen the movie, it's kind of hard to give an opinion about. So, Roger, off to you.
And with like DC, I can't really say much about the Jokers because I kind of skimmed through the first time, and I really didn't pay much attention to it. But like for me, I noticed when it comes to all the DC movies, it's just they've really, all of them has gone off rail, and I think it happened after Harley Quinn. You know, when they started really promoting her, and don't get me wrong, I like Harley Quinn, you know, but like the characters are just going way off the rail. Batman is just completely ridiculous from what it was back when I remember it growing up. You know, you see complete opposites of what they are. They're a lot darker, and some of them they're making the good or the bad guys into good guys or anti-heroes. You know, and so I mean, it's kind of a common theme for me when it comes to DC movies these days, to where they're actually not going, you know, they're going that route. And I don't know. I think that it's really weird, and I can't even compare the DC movies to the Marvel movies because they're like two totally different topics in my opinion. Because I grew up on both. I grew up around both of them. I'm not really big on a DC side. I don't really get into Superman and Batman and all them as well as I do the Marvels, you know, but that's just my observation of it. I think they could kind of get back to the basics and start over. That would probably be their best bet.
Personally, I am more, being a Brit, I'm more of the sort of British sort of 2000 AD Judge Dredd culture, and if you ever read any of that material, that's tended to be much more grittier, much more on the cuff sort of thing compared to a lot of American stuff.
Yeah, the Joker was actually pretty gritty, and they tried to recreate that for the second movie, and it just didn't. Yeah, in your words, it didn't pop, right? That would probably be the right word. The movie just didn't pop. There wasn't any real, like, even the scenes where there was a lot of action, and there were a few of them in the movie, they were sedate. That would probably be the right word for it. But yeah, you two haven't seen it, and to be honest with you, the Joker sequel was not particularly memorable. So let's just move on to the next topic, because the next topic is going to be. It's got some international repercussions. So yeah, so let's move on to that one. So topic number 2. Now this one was a bit of a forewarning of what I think is happening, because in Canada they've got a bill called C-63, and I don't know what they've got. I think they've got some type of a bill that's attempting to get through the Australian and New Zealand houses as well, of a very similar nature, where they're attempting to, for lack of a better word, try to get some censorship on the internet. Now, the United States has got some very strict safeguards in place in its Bill of Rights and its Constitution, which really make it very difficult. It's a lot easier, for instance, in the Commonwealth countries to put restrictions on speech online and whatnot than it is in the United States. But they are attempting to. They're the Democrats specifically, and this should absolutely come as no surprise, considering what the Democrats have been doing over the past few years. The Democrats and what Hillary, again, they will put it in Canada with Bill C-63. What Bill C-63 does is that they put this it's called the Online Harms Act, which is supposed to protect children, but it also at the same time gives government broad sweeping powers to investigate quote unquote hate speech, and you're allowed to report anonymously. So basically what it is that it's an attempt to censor Canadian content on social media, whilst using the guise of quote unquote protecting children to do it. Section 230, I don't know the exact legalities of Section 230, but Section 230, I believe, covers the publisher platform narrative about the internet. Now, and this is no word of a lie, Facebook has actually tried 2 cases at the same time, and on one, third-party content. Thank you very much. Basically what it does is, for instance, if somebody does a drug deal over the telephone and somebody dies as a result of that criminal act, you cannot sue the phone company. Same situation applies with the internet. Thank you, Roger, for that. The situation here is that they want to try to hold because this is sort of the same sort of thing they tried to do with they didn't try, they did do to Alex Jones, is where they held Alex Jones liable for the actions of a couple of his unhinged fans, whom Alex Jones has no control over. Now, repealing Section 230 of that act would mean then that if somebody unhinged that was listening to me, for instance, went out and committed a crime and mentioned my name while he was doing it, I would be legally liable for what he did, as opposed to right now. And I'm going to talk specifically about that guy who shot up that mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand back in 2019, and how he recorded everything, and he specifically dropped a couple of names to try to smear them for doing what he was doing. And this is basically the same sort of thing. If Section 230 is repealed, they would be able to, for instance, commit an act of terrorism or mass murder. And, you know, if they were willing to do it, they could maybe just have this person mention a celebrity's name, and that celebrity would automatically be held liable for the actions of that person. That's what Section 230 does. And what this boils down to is that, I mean, I'm seeing this because they have, I believe that in Great Britain, they have a bill that has been passed, which basically classifies any hard criticism of feminism as hate speech. Now, I don't know what the exact bill number is, but they've been trying to get that passed in Britain for a while, and now that they have the Labour government, they went ahead and passed it. There was I do believe in every single Western country right now there is a version of this particular bill or idea being pushed. In fact, if you recall, Brazil has outlawed Rumble, and it has outlawed Twitter, and it has outlawed Twitter/X, and they have gone so far as to make it a criminal offense if you operated a VPN on your computer in that country, with like really astronomically high fines if you're caught with a VPN on your computer in Brazil. So what you're seeing with this is an attempt by, well, for lack of a better word, the globalists to try to censor or try to put a damper on the clearly mounting criticism and challenge that they're getting with their agenda. That's the only thing, because I mean, it's like if it was just happening in one country, it would be one thing, but it's like it's literally happening almost everywhere, in almost every country, specifically in the West, and all seems to be coming down all more or less at the same time. So I can't just dismiss that as a coincidence. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Okay, as far as Brazil's concerned, I find it quite ironic. A VPN is to hide or to provide some anonymity.
Anonymity.
Yeah, indeed. So if you are invisible in effect, how can you be proven? How can you be proven to have committed that crime? It just amuses me. But as far as Britain's concerned, me and Roger was talking, had a discussion on Mine's Chat back on Thursday last week. No, sorry, Thursday, 26th of September, and we were talking about the alleged Asian eating cats and dogs story, and we were talking about this in relation to that, and I pointed out that under the UK Communications Act of 2003, it is an offence to send electronic messages or send the improper use of public electronic communication networks, including sending messages that are grossly offensive, indecent, obscene, or menacing, or persistently uses, medicine, really. The question here is, what is offensive? Who defines what is offensive? I mean, there's the old idea of offence is taken, not given. But also, the UK Equalities Act of 2010 talks about perceived offence. So it doesn't matter if somebody, and it doesn't have to be perceived offence of the individual. It can be you perceiving offence based on somebody else's view. So if I say something outrageous and you think that somebody else would be offended from that, I could be guilty of a crime. And I'm not sure what you mean about the Labour Party's act, but there was an act, Bill, there was an act released last year, the 2023 Online Safety Act, which sort of, again, was used as a sort of, the excuse was to protect children, but it was in reality so broad that it made any sort of criticism technically offensive and a prosecutable offence. And also, Ofcom, UK Office of Communication, so a state agency, a governmental agency, has been given powers to act as, broadcasting gatekeepers for the internet within the UK. Ofcom's traditional role was to act as gatekeepers for television and radio. So if let's say a television broadcaster said something that was against the rules, Ofcom could lay fines against that broadcaster. But I believe that the Online Safety Act has given them wider powers to have accuse or prosecute anybody in the UK of offence. And I believe that, even though Scotland is slightly different from the rest of the UK, and Scotland has got their own subset of rules in relation to this, Scotland has already attempted to prosecute people for offensive content, or what they would deem as offensive content. I'm not sure if the trials are still going on. I suspect they are. But also, we have seen with the recent protests in the UK over the last couple of months of people, in some cases, according to the law, rightfully arrested for publishing content that is deemed as incitement to violence. But in some other cases, the cases seem to be so, let's say, really, that it is questionable if those people did commit an offence anyway, but they've been fast-tracked to imprisonment. Saying that, though, a lot of these people have pleaded guilty at the earliest chance. So in UK law, if you plead guilty at immediately, then your custodial sentence, the prison sentence itself, is reduced, and then you've got house imprisonment in effect. So it's a tricky one, but also I've seen a lot of arguments for and against Section 230 of the US Telecommunications Act. This puts more emphasis on the providers to police the content. So, and in some cases, in the UK case, especially UK Online Safety Act, there's a current question about being prosecuted or being, I don't know, not prosecuted, being checked up by the police authorities for situations that are technically not illegal, but are questionable. So if I say something that is technically not illegal, but is questionable as far as certain communities are concerned, the police could technically knock on my door and or give me a phone call and ask me why I made such comments, which of course makes them sort of false place. And yeah, so I don't know where this is going, but it's, again, I cannot see Section 2. I didn't know about Section 230 because I was thinking of it in relation to the US First Amendment, but the US First Amendment is only related to government. Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk are not government. They are owners of private sector companies. So there's a big question in relation to that. But I don't know what else I can really say about that. It's an interesting one.
I believe it's the 14th Amendment which talks about corporate personhood, because it's like I hear this argument a lot. Oh, well, corporations can't violate the amendment because it only applies to government institutions and people. And it's like, well, no, you're not, because 14th Amendment clearly states that corporations are people. So it does apply to them. A lot of people.
Governmental people. Are we talking
Oh, yeah,
about,
14th Amendment. 14th Amendment clearly states that corporations are people.
Yeah,
so,
but the First Amendment only talks about government.
Yeah.
Per se, nothing doesn't talk about people as in generalization. When it only refers to government.
Yeah, so, that's what that. Well, I mean, yeah, corporations are considered people, though. There is such a thing as corporate personhood. So yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that, because I've heard that argument before, especially coming out of the left, and it's like, no, you're not allowed as a corporation because you are a corporation or as a person. You as a person cannot restrict my right to say something, because even if you're a corporation, because you're a person, right? And yeah, and it's like, oh, well, it only applies to government seat people. And in that case, any private individual could restrict any other private individual from saying what they were saying because it, quote unquote, only applies to the government. And that's just not the case. Anyway, let's get on with Roger. Roger, you're up.
Yeah, with that, you got Mark pretty hyped up, actually. He got excited there, so don't be fooled by it. He enjoyed that. Now, the thing that stuck out to me when you guys were talking was this act. Well, there's a couple things that stuck out to me, but the thing that really stuck out to me was, well, first of all, when Mark was talking about England and the television, how they're the same company that was, or the same organization that was used for the television is now doing the same stuff with the
Yeah.
internet. That reminds me of back when we were all growing up. You know what I mean? It was like, and I've mentioned it before on a couple of streams. I think even on this one with you, Naroki, where like we didn't have the privilege of watching any of the English broadcast television shows. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like we got to watch Doctor Who. We got to watch freaking Benny Hill. And there was a couple of other ones too, you know, that we could watch, but we didn't get access to the freaking BBC or any of the mainstream British shows, and that was because there was organizations that were always in England that was preventing television broadcasts coming out of the UK from making it over to the United States and America. Period. You know, that's why they had three. What was no? It was two or three different freaking versions of "Are You Being Served?" I think there was three of those because England wouldn't allow freaking the show to be broadcast in freaking Australia and in the United States. You know, and then
There
three.
is still a question of commercial interests as well, especially since I think 98, the BBC has split off into a sort of public sector organisation, and then you've got subsidiary companies such as BBC Studios, which are commercial entities that sell licenses to people like Netflix and Amazon, as an example.
Yeah, I know they have lightened up quite a bit in the last 20 years or so. But I mean, I'm talking about like how bad they really were, like back when we were younger, you know, back when the wall fell and freaking, you know, the year 2000 was like the turning point when things started opening up. But before that, man, it was horrible.
But but there's also that licensing issue even back then, because it was funded by the license fee payer, the taxpayer. So the question is, should you receive something that we, the taxpayer, the British taxpayer, paid for? Obviously, we also, the BBC also, and still the World Service, the radio World Service, which is free to all countries, majority of countries.
I don't think so. I think they, I'm pretty sure that they were pretty restrictive to everything over here on the continent, this continent, and like, I think France may have been able to have more access than what we have here in United States and in Canada. And Australia was even a part of the same was a colony of the British, you know what I mean? And they had to still, they still had to freaking make their own version of this show. And then Three's Company is another example, you know. You had the American version, then you had the British version, and the British version was first. You know, but because they weren't allowed to broadcast their TV show over here on the American continent, they had to make a whole new show here in the United States separate from it.
But the argument there would be is that the BBC would sell the license to make your own, sell the rights for you to use that name and that format.
See, and that's where the common theme is. That's what's happening today, and that's what's going on. Is what it's leading to. You know what I mean? With these people are playing it off like they want to protect your privacy and they want to protect your safety and they want to protect this and they want to protect that. But I guarantee you, it has to do with coming in with regulations, referendums, and the only reason why they're wanting to do that is so that they can determine how much money they're going to sell this stuff for whenever they take control of it. And, you know, we have the FCC here in the United States, and that's paid for by the people too. But you know what? The majority of people here in the United States don't like the FCC. We didn't choose for our government to set up any kind of organization like that. Want to go through and determine what we're allowed to broadcast and what we're not allowed to broadcast. That was something the government did on their own. You know what I mean? There was no vote. So
I'm not so sure that the counter argument could be related to money making. I would argue that it's more sort of hearts and minds sort of thing. Such as, I don't know, as an example, what you can say about certain demographics, or what you can say about medical interventions.
yes,
What is allowed. Yeah.
this is what
Often,
this is what the general person misunderstands. They don't understand that, like, you really don't have a say after you vote your representative into office. Okay. Now, when you turn around and you vote a representative into office, the whole intention of that is they turn around and they represent you in government. So they go and they start speaking on your behalf. All right. Now, that, you know what I mean? In theory, yeah. That's what it is. So you vote for these people to go to this freaking to Congress or wherever it is you guys go, Parliament, and they're going up there and they're making deals on your behalf, whether freaking you agree with it or not. You know what I mean? Because they were the ones voted in by the people in your area. So, and a lot of people forget that fact. You know what I mean? I didn't personally agree with any kind of.
In the UK, we have got a couple of safety nets in relation to this. If there could be the backbenchers in Parliament could say no, and could actually go and write to the 1922 committee and say we are not happy with what's happening in the government, and call for a technical ousting of the government. And also, we've also got the monarch in this country, who's, in theory, if the government is acting not in the interest of the state, maybe the public or monarch or the broad-term state, the monarch could actually close down government at any point. But again, that hasn't happened I don't think it's ever happened in modern history.
You know, I think that the reason why they're not doing that is because they're afraid. You know what I mean? Like we've talked about that before. Like they know.
Yeah, the kingpins, the Charles I sort of argument, and yeah.
Now, the whole thing about this act, though, that really catches me is when it starts talking about going in and, you know, protecting people from all of these hate speeches and stuff like that, or freaking criminal activities. It was like you said, you know, who gets to determine that kind of stuff? You know what I mean? We've seen it here in the United States now with the whole deal that happened with the COVID outbreak, where the government has been able to literally go into storefronts and force them to close down, which in turn freaking put them out of business. Nobody wants to talk about how many small companies actually went out of business because the government literally stepped in and said, you're not allowed to have your doors open anymore. And it amazes me that we allowed our government that much power to come in and just extend that power, you know what I mean? Because it's these people's livelihood. It's not, you know, games. COVID wasn't a game, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, freaking people, you know, having small stores to provide freaking for their families, that those people freaking needed that work. They needed those doors to be open. You know, and the government literally had the power to go in and force them to shut down. And when you see stuff like this taking place, where they have these supposed human rights acts, you know what I mean, and coming into play, you got to really ask yourself what is their real motives, because they can extend that power and they can take full advantage of it, you know. So
it amuses me that Labour has always been the party of the working person, or at least that's the idea, at least up to the Blairite era of '97. Before that, it was always considered, Labour has always been considered as the party of the working person. But since Blairism, it seems, especially within the current administration, it seems like there is very little appetite to protect so-called small business, and Labour just to capitulate to the large organisations, the Amazons of the world, as an example.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's happening everywhere. It's happening really everywhere. And the sad part about it is like, when it comes to this stuff, I think it's going to hit freaking Rumble the hardest out of all of them. To be honest with you, because they've actually. It's really weird how Rumble's been working, because like you do have platforms like what's that one that just gotten in trouble? I forgot their name, but I'll catch on to it here in a little bit. But you have them, and then you have Odyssey and all these other groups that are out there like BitChute. But Rumble, for some reason, has been able to be, for being in Canada especially, that's what surprised me the most. But they've actually had more leniency towards that platform than what most other platforms have had. I'm really surprised, So, but I can see if something like this comes into play, they're gonna eat frickin' Rumble for breakfast, because there's a lot of people that are on there who are content creators that speak out and start talking about crazy stuff like Alex Jones did, and they get away with it, I was talking about And
sorry, I was just thinking, just as you were saying that, I was just thinking of Rebel News in Canada, and I do part of Rebel News quite often, and they come up with roadblocks all the time. They I don't know how many legal cases they've had against the Canadian government, federal government, but yeah, they've had issues because they are not. They're sort of anti-Trudeau, and they are sort of pro-free speech and pro-civil liberties. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave it there. I had some other stuff that popped in my head, but I'm not gonna like throw it out there, other than the fact that you mentioned it with Hillary Clinton. I don't trust anything Hillary Clinton has her fingers on. That woman really should be in prison. And that's saying it nicely. You know what I mean? She really is somebody that should have been put in prison a long time ago. So.
Oh, her and Bill Clinton deserve each other. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, I'm going to pass on this one now, but.
All right. Well, that takes care of that one. That one went on for a while, actually. That was a bit of a surprise. So the next topic, and we're going to get into the area of sports next, of all things. Now, as both of I think both you guys know about the WNBA. The WNBA has actually been around for a while. It has never, ever, and I do mean ever, turned a profit. In the past couple of years, though, what the major networks have been trying to do, and I see this specifically on highlights of the month in particular, or on the sports news segments where they will cover women's sports, women's basketball, women's hockey, and they will try to give it some legitimacy. The only problem is that it's like, for instance, when I watch the sports highlights, and it's like, and they show these highlights from WNBA or the new women's professional hockey league and that sort of thing. And it's like, you know, these, I mean, if these are might be spectacular highlights for women athletes to pull this stuff off. But I mean, you know, when they compare it to, you know, the stuff that you see from the male athletes, where it's like where you see guys like shoot a soccer ball from midfield and it somehow manages to slink past the goaltender, or you see Connor McDavid, they basically drive past four NHL players and score a goal on the backhand at full speed. Or you see an absolutely stellar throw from an NFL quarterback or something like that, and you compare that to the stuff that they have in the WNBA, and you look at them and it's sort of like, why is this stuff even there, right? Like, but the WNBA got very lucky. And what ended up happening is that the WNBA got, and this happens in basketball too. They had a guy in the NBA who got drafted by the San Antonio Spurs a couple of years back who was considered a quote-unquote generational talent. These are players that come along every 10 or 15 years that are just absolutely stellar players that can step into the top league in any sport. Maybe not necessarily dominate in their first season, but they come in, and usually with the second or third season, they're just absolutely dominant at the top level. So Caitlin Clark joined the WNBA, and Caitlin Clark is a pretty, again, I gotta throw this in as an acronym. For a female basketball player, she is fucking incredible. Like, she can do stuff as a woman that you know, guys can pull stuff like that off, but very few women don't have the athletic ability to pull off some of the stuff that Caitlin Clark is able to do. Caitlin Clark has also been compared to Steph Curry. Steph Curry, she's got a really devastating three-point shot, and she's got phenomenal talent. Like, she can move the ball around, and she's fast and all that sort of stuff, right? She's not like the full 360 like LeBron James is in terms of all of her skills, but the ones that she does have are like, she can do pretty much everything. The only thing about Caitlin Clark is that, and this is something that is a bit of a sticking point considering what is going on, is that Caitlin Clark is white. Now, for all of us, it's like, yeah, big goddamn deal. She's white. You know, what's the problem? Well, the WNBA, even though it's subsidized, the overwhelming number of players that play in the WNBA are Black African American women. And Caitlin Clark joined the league, joined the WNBA, and she had an absolutely stellar first season. And along the way, she was sheep-shotted without the referees interfering, publicly trashed multiple times by multiple players. There was one player that won the MVP for the WNBA this year who like literally demanded that Caitlin Clark owes her reparations. There was a situation where she got snubbed by the U.S. international basketball team, even though she clearly is playing at a level where she is already like, I mean, she's not necessarily the best player in the world right now because she's just a rookie, but she's playing well enough. She's one of those few people that, as a rookie, could play on, I mean, I got to emphasize this, the U.S. national basketball team. Even the women's national basketball team is pretty goddamn dominant. And she's able to step in there and play as a rookie, but they left her off. She gets routinely cheap shotted. Basically, she has been, and a lot of it has been because of her race, because she's white. And what happened is that, and it was clearly shown when in the end, the team that she plays for got eliminated from the playoffs, viewership for the WNBA like cratered. Like it went from fairly decent ratings for a women's basketball game, like really good ratings, to like just atrocious. And none of them, nobody in the league wanted to admit that part of the reason why that happened was because the team that Caitlin Clark played for, the Indiana Fever, had been eliminated. They did, however, go out and make a bunch of anti-white racist remarks towards her. So they get to the end of the first season. Caitlin Clark decides, you know what? I don't have to deal with this shit. I'm going over to Europe. And she
But do you truly believe eyeballs are going to tune in? People are going to be clamoring, let me get my popcorn ready to see Caitlin Clark ride the bench.
This is what she did. Like somebody's like, oh, Cheryl Swoops only scored 34 points in the WNBA. Caitlin scored 35. So you can't use stats when it benefits you.
Wait, what? Caitlin Clark, the rookie sensation who's been smashing records and dragging the WNBA to new heights, might be done with the league? Yep, the WNBA's biggest star is packing her bags, and this could change everything you thought you knew about women's basketball. But why is she leaving? And what does this mean for the future of the WNBA? The WNBA season's ending for a lot of teams, and as usual, players are heading overseas to make some cash in the offseason. But here's the kicker. Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest breakout star, is seriously considering not coming back at all. Yep, she's thinking about quitting the WNBA. And when the star who's been breaking records and making history wants out, you know something's wrong. Clark has been more than just a player. She's a phenomenon. Her games? Pulling in over 1.5 million viewers during the regular season, breaking viewership and attendance records all over the place. Let me put this in perspective. She's outselling WNBA legends like Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi in jersey sales as a rookie. So why is the league's biggest star walking away? Well, let's get into it. First off, the pay. Even though she's the face of the WNBA, Caitlin Clark's salary is just $76,000 a year. That's less than what a lot of entry-level jobs pay. And even the highest paid players in the league? They top out around $200,000. Compare that to what some overseas leagues are offering, we're talking millions. Diana Taurasi once got $1.5 million to play in Russia. That's nearly 10 times what WNBA players are making. Clark's also frustrated with the physicality of the game and how it's officiated. In an interview, she said, "I feel like I'm getting hammered out there, and nobody's protecting me." She's fed up, and it's not just her. Many players feel like they're not getting the respect or safety they deserve on the court. So what's Caitlin Clark's next move? Well, rumor has it, she's already headed to Europe, where she can make more money and play in a less physical, more skill-based environment. EuroLeague teams are known for treating players better, both in terms of pay and player welfare. And this might just be the beginning of a larger trend. If the WNBA doesn't step up, more players could follow Clark's lead. Remember when Gabby Williams and Diana Taurasi played overseas for bigger paychecks? That might just become the new norm. This brings us to the big question, is the WNBA at a crossroads? Players are feeling undervalued, underpaid, and unsafe. If the league doesn't address these issues, better salaries, improved conditions, and fair officiating, we could be looking at a massive player exodus. Caitlin Clark leaving might be the wake-up call the WNBA needs. This could be a turning point for women's basketball in America, but it could also spell trouble if the league doesn't take action. So what do you think? Is Caitlin Clark making the right choice by heading overseas? Will this push the WNBA to finally make the changes it needs, or are we about to see more stars leave the league for good? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more updates on the world of sports, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video.
Caitlin Clark what she's doing is amazing. And if I was going to drive from my place in Chicago to see an Iowa basketball team play, I'd drive to see the women, who I think are drawing about as many fans per game as the men in Iowa. But wouldn't you go and see, wouldn't you get in the car and ride with me to go see Caitlin Clark? Wouldn't that be worth
Absolutely.
it? She's
absolutely.
fabulous to watch.
I am probably speaking stupidity here when I say this, but it's based on at least reasonable thought. I think she should apply for a graduate year and play again, because the pay cut she's going to have to take to go to the WNBA compared with the NIL
80%.
money. Mike, you're right. She fills that gym. I mean, her money is worth it and must be fabulous. And the WNBA can't give her that kind of money.
She and Angel Reese are must-see in person or on television. You want to see them play, and they got to take pay cuts next year. Big ones if they go to the league.
No, it's not. Yeah. We're running out.
She leaves. After one season in the WNBA, she leaves. She's the WNBA, for all intents and purposes, has killed its golden goose after just one season. And the reason why she's leaving is because of all of the abuse that she was getting, and nobody stepped in, even though she was the one bringing in all the money for the league, that she was going to be the cash cow that made the league somewhat legitimate. They just turned her back and just left her out on her own. And Caitlin Clark said, well, I don't have to deal with this anymore. I got phenomenal talent. I can go play anywhere. So she's going over to Europe now. Here's the issue that occurred with this. All of the players and all of the announcers and all of the individuals that took runs at Caitlin Clark were African American, were black. All of them. And some of the remarks that they said were outright, they were racist and bigoted. Nobody in the league, I don't even think anybody, even another player on another team, stood up and said something. And the commissioner of the WNBA, whose job it probably should have been to intervene, didn't intervene, because if she had done so, the player that ended up falling on the disciplinary end of that decision probably would have tried to play the race card on the commissioner for doing that. So they completely ignored all the abuse that Caitlin Clark was getting. And as a result, she left. Now, the issue here is, though, it's if you're a league that's struggling and you have a player that comes in and is able to bring you up to a new level of awareness in the world and in North America, you do everything in your power to protect that player. You do not just leave that player out swimming on their own because you don't want to appear as though you're racist. And that is, I'm saying, this is me speculating here, that is exactly what happened. So you have all of these other players in the WNBA attacking her, taking cheap shots at her, making demands of her, and basically saying that the only reason that she's, even though her play clearly demonstrates that she deserves to be there, that the only reason that she's there is because she's white, which is not the case. Caitlin Clark is probably already, I'm going to have to say, probably one of the top 5 or 6 women basketball players on the planet already as a rookie. And they did nothing. They ignored it. And I'm going to bring up something else and this is the second time in less than 6 months where somebody in power didn't intervene until it was too late. And the case I'm going to bring up is the one with Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast, and I can't remember what Mr. Beast's real name is. We'll probably take a look at it when while I'm busy talking here. However, Ava Chris Tyson was caught soliciting and interacting with little boys in a way. Oh, James Stephen Donaldson is his name. James Stephen Donaldson. Ava Chris Tyson was his friend. And he was caught. Ava Chris Tyson, not Stephen Donaldson, aka Mr. Beast, was caught interacting in a pedophilic kind of way with boys that were underaged. And as it has been revealed with Mr. Donaldson, aka Mr. Beast, he probably knew what was going on, or at the very least suspected it, but didn't want to do anything. The reason why he didn't want to do anything, because if he had gone and fired or released Ava Chris Tyson could have played the homophobic card. And keep in mind that Mr. Beast is the largest YouTube content creator in the world. YouTube is his money platform. If he had done that and Ava Chris Tyson had played the transphobic card, Mr. Beast would have taken a substantial financial hit. Make no mistake about it, because YouTube wouldn't have cared about the fact that Stephen Donaldson had found out that Ava Chris Tyson was doing this with kids. And if he had let Ava Chris Tyson go or had fired him, YouTube would have basically thrown him to the wolves without even so much as a second thought. Never mind the fact that Ava Chris Tyson is probably a pedophile. That's just an opinion. I'm not going to state that as a fact. And what ended up happening, though, is that Mr. Donaldson instead now is facing, because all of the other issues that Mr. Beast had with former employees, all of that other stuff has now come out because he overlooked Ava Chris Tyson. And again, one of the biggest speculating points is that Mr. Beast did not do it because he was afraid he was going to be labeled in a very unfair manner, which would have potentially damaged his corporation. And what ended up happening is that they got damaged anyway, but in a more indirect fashion. Same thing here goes with the WNBA. The commissioner of the WNBA should have had a commentator like Cheryl Swifson should have had these basketball players in her office and telling them that they needed to publicly apologize for their racist remarks towards Caitlin Clark. She did not do it. And the reason probably why it didn't happen is because she was afraid of appearing racist. And now, as a result, they're getting, which would have damaged them financially. But because they didn't do it, they're getting damaged now anyway, because of all of the lost revenue they're not going to see, because Caitlin Clark is no longer in the WNBA. So the WNBA quite literally killed its own golden goose. And I will just say one more thing about this before I turn it over to Mark. There was another player, and this is the reason, this is the contrast between leagues. The NHL had a player that got drafted last year by the Chicago Blackhawks by the name of Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard is also a generational talent. If a player in the NHL had tried heaping the abuse on Connor Bedard that had been done on Caitlin Johnson, that player would have been fined, suspended, may have even been sent down to the minors. I mean, his career would have been potentially over. And before you say, well, that's because of misogyny, it's like, well, no, I want to point something out, one last thing out, and then I'm done. What happened with Caitlin Clark is women on women. Period. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Okay. As far as the Tyson and Mr. Beast thing is concerned, I believe there's nothing. It's an active court case.
Well, it's just a parallel. Stephen Donaldson did not deal with Ava Chris Tyson, and the WNBA commissioner did not deal with all the bigots and the abuse being heaped on Caitlin Clark. And as a result, both of them ended up being damaged anyway, because they didn't do what they were supposed to do, because they didn't want to appear, in the case of WNBA, they didn't want to appear to be racist. And in the case of Mr. Beast, they didn't want to appear to be homophobic or transphobic. But we're talking specifically about Caitlin Clark. I was just bringing up that thing of Mr. Beast as a parallel.
I'm not going to comment on the Mr. Beast thing because I can see much more complications, many more complications in relation to that. But in relation to the US women's basketball, WNBA, Women's Network Basketball Association. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't follow sport that much anyway, and as far as US sports is concerned, I don't follow it at all. But saying that, as you said, if that's the facts, yeah, they've killed their own golden goose. I don't know. It's all relates to the sort of inclusivity and equality is our strength. But, however, we're in this sort of culture at the moment where certain demographics have a stronger voice than other demographics, and if you are on the demographic that can't shout as loud, or you haven't got enough support, then yeah, you're just going to be pushed out of your hobby or activity or sport in this case. But again, free market ideology. Clark can, as you said, is intending to move to Europe, and she will be able to pick up another contract with another sporting organisation team in Europe. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's the NBA's loss. Really. Yeah, I can't really say very much more than that. If one organisation is treating her unfairly, then she has got more right to move to another team and play for them. That's the beauty of free market economics.
I agree with you on that. Like, and there's also, this goes back to what I was talking to with Naroki about when it comes to that one girl that was from Canada, and it was in his hometown. You know, I'd love to say that it was just like these big, these big rich freaking corporate people that are making all the decisions, but it's a stereotype too. This girl, they made a movie out of her back in the 80s where it was the quarterback that was also prom queen, And there's a lot
Tammy
of
Maida, Tammy Maida, I remember her, yeah.
and it's gotten so much bigger now. It's over money now, and the stakes have gone up higher. Now, me personally, I'm not big on the WNBA. You know, I got into basketball quite a bit when I was younger. I enjoyed playing it, but you know, when it comes to having like your favorite sports team, when it comes to basketball, I'd say the closest I came to was like the Phoenix Suns whenever they had Charles Barkley on there. But when it comes to like them basically sacrificing their golden calf, basically like what you're talking about, that's actually kind of strange because that usually doesn't happen. Usually they try to keep it a secret. It's just like that one guy. He was a football player. They didn't know about his domestic violence until they caught him on videotape beating his wife or girlfriend in the elevator, you know. And until then, you know, nobody heard anything about it. It was just like with the Phoenix Cardinals. A lot of people don't realize that when the Phoenix Cardinals got sold off to Phoenix, they actually bought an entire team of freaking felons and criminals, dude. Like every single one of them had a freaking felony charge that was either on them or they had already gone through and had been convicted of, you know. So there's a lot of things that I think are overlooked because freaking today I think that that's how a lot of these people are able to control like the mass people, you know. It's through entertainment. Like you were talking about like these leftist woke people, you know. When it comes to like back in the 60s, you got to remember freaking the civil rights movements and all that wouldn't have had anything. It wouldn't even gotten started off the ground if it wasn't for the sports industry, especially football. They were real big on pushing black rights and everything during the 60s and the 70s. So these aren't just sports, you know. There's a lot of politics and a lot of stuff like that that are tied up into it, you know. I couldn't tell you how many freaking riots start over a freaking soccer game over in freaking England or Spain or somewhere out where they just start getting into fights and shit right there in the auditorium. They're notorious for it, you know.
Not so much in the UK anymore, at least in the last 20, 30 odd years anyway. I remember when I was growing up in the 80s, it was quite common, but different decade, different era.
Well, I've got my opinions on that, and it has to do with the water. Okay, they're putting something in the water. Like, freaking people aren't acting right anymore because, like, back in the day, that was the way it was. You went to a freaking sporting event, and, like, people got rude with you. Like, here in the United States, it was baseball. You sit down in a baseball game, you know, everybody's like, oh, baseball's boring. But go and sit in the freaking auditorium and listen to these people back in the freaking 1970s and the 80s, you know, they were rude to people. They were straight up rude. They'd yell out there in the freaking field, you know, you dirty son of a bitch and shit like that, you know. And today, man, they're all proper and nice and they do the wave and they don't really like.
I'm not sure about proper nice. I think the word I'm looking for is more tolerant.
They're more woke is what it is. That's the best way of saying it. They've gotten more, and people have this mentality where they have to act like that way or freaking they're going to be shunned and shit, you know. And that's the one thing that I'm seeing here with especially stuff like this. Now, with her being white and stuff of that nature, I'm just going to say it. It's like, and it has nothing to do with freaking, you know, racism or anything like that. But you take a look at it, okay? It is more normal for black people to be more physically fit. I mean, there is the freaking Urkels and shit like that in the black community. But it is that way, and it has nothing to do with a person's intelligence or anything. I'm talking about like physically fit people are generally, black people, and it's been that way. And it's when it comes to situations like this, the racism, it goes both directions. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really big on saying that it's that it's just these people's fault. It's actually two ways, because like when black people act racist, they have a tendency of calling it reverse racism, which is still racism, but it's racism nonetheless. You know what I mean?
Or even more amusing, a term that's it's not so often floated in UK anymore, but used to be positive racism.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like they want to distinguish between what a black person's racism is considering a white person's racism, and you're not even talking about the Mexicans. Mexicans are even freaking worse than what white and black people are, dude. You know what I mean? Hispanics, oh my God, dude. You don't go to a freaking barbecue with a Hispanic person unless freaking you're a part of their family. You know what I mean? It gets that serious with them. So everybody has the issues going on within their freaking race, whatever. It's not white people being racist or black people being racist or Hispanics or any of that. It's everybody has their racist tendencies, and that's just.
I had a similar conversation with somebody not that long ago, and I was talking about the concept of in Britain. There's this concept of multiculturalism. And I prefer to use in this sort of respect. I prefer the sort of concept of I prefer to argue against the concept of multiculturalism compared to multiracialism, because multiculturalism can, depend on how it's pushed, create ghettos, create communities that are separated.
Yeah.
Whereas multiracialism allows, especially in a extremely, I don't know, old country such as Britain, if that makes sense. There is there's a common culture. And by bringing in people of different cultures that are not totally compatible with the native culture, there's a possibility of creating ghettoization. I know it's different in the US because
it's not. It's not. It's not.
Traditionally, the US is a cultural mismatch, if that makes sense. It's a hotspot of different cultures.
See, that's something else too that I want to point out, because a lot of people don't realize this. It's not until I'd say the late 80s, early 90s before we had, or it was the end of, it's a bad name, it starts with an N, but N towns basically is what it is, where it was all black communities, okay? And here in the United States, that shit was real, okay? My younger part of my life, I remember them when I was living in Florida and even here in Illinois. I mean, they were real, and they've all but disappeared. Now, if people are living in those communities still today and it's all black people, then freaking it's because they choose to. They can go and they can live anywhere they want. But it was here, you know what I mean? Even though there was a huge different type of community, there was the freaking ghettoization, I guess you could call it. It did exist here in the United States, even though we had different cultures. So that's something that I did want to point out, because I've actually wanted to bring this up before in different topics on different streams, and I keep forgetting to. But a lot of people don't realize that, because it seems like we have amnesia. We forget what took place 30, 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Talk about history 200 years ago, but forget about the stuff that happened back 30 or 40 years ago within our own lifetime, you know?
Also, but on the opposite point, the US is only 200, 300 years old.
Yeah.
Whereas Britain, or well, England, should I say more than Britain, is well over 1,000 years old.
Oh, you guys are the worst. You're the
So
worst.
yeah, so we've got a very sort of common, I don't know, built-in sort of cultural viewpoint.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just your culture is. Well, the thing about England that I've noticed is you guys are losing touch with your culture. Like, I was talking to Bob Dub, I think it was, the other day, and I told her, I was like, no, it was Aunt Sonia. I was telling her, I was like, you guys have freaking these old King highways that run freaking, that are like over 800 years old, that run from one side of England all the way down to the other side, where, and all they are old little dirt paths, you know what I mean? And you have freaking monoliths that are just, every freaking town has at least 10 of them in every direction, you know what I mean? But it seems like nobody even cares. It's just a part of the fixture for you guys, you know what I mean, these days. Whereas one time it was really important, these things were.
Well, you could argue that's more related to education, or lack of education.
Well, your culture too.
The entire conversation about the British education.
Well, it's your culture too, though. You know what I'm saying? You get me? It's more of your culture as well.
But yeah, but culture is, I don't know. There's a part of culture which is instilled, which is a sort of traditional sort of culture that is easily replicated, but there's also a part of culture which is taught.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the sort of taught side of the culture. And if
I wouldn't say like schools though. I'd say it's something that your parents should have been teaching you. You know what I mean? It's not something.
Yeah, but if they are not knowledgeable of such things, or if they've got limited knowledge of such things.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that
goes back to education, as in, yeah.
You know, but, I mean, with me on the WNBA like that, that's kind of what it's about. It's like a clash of things. I personally don't get into the Women's National Basketball Association because I don't like the way they dress. I think they should wear skimpier clothes. I mean, like, look at their stuff. I mean, women shouldn't be running around in men's freaking basketball jerseys. It's just horrible. It's bad enough dudes have to do that stuff, you know, having their junk hanging out the bottom like that, because they're all free balling. Got silky pants and shit on them, and free balling. So.
Okay, are we? Because we've really gone off. We've really gone off here. Yeah, we were talking about Caitlin Clark, and yeah, we need to get back on topic here. So, does anybody else have anything more to say about Caitlin Clark?
Well, I mean, you want to talk about Jessica Yaniv next, so I don't think we could go any farther off rail than that, dude. Seriously, I mean, like, you got Giannis as the next topic, so.
Oh my God! Yeah. Well.
Good segue.
Anyway, let's get, because we're already an hour and almost an hour and a half.
We did it. We just secured a win for a secret legal battle we've been taking on to take down and expose a violent trans activist. Some of you might already be guessing who this individual is. It's Jessica Serenity Simpson, more commonly known as Jonathan Yaniv.
Go. Hey, Sheriff, this guy's up for assault. Why aren't you protecting this reporter?
Do you know what fuck off means? I'll get him to bite you. I'll get him to bite you.
Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and it feels so good to finally share our secret with you. Most importantly, it feels good to share that our efforts to take this leap of faith that we've been working on for weeks has paid off. We brought legal action forth against this individual, despite the amount of leniency this individual gets in court, time after claiming to be victim of transphobia. But moments ago, Justice Chan just sided with Rebel News and dropped all of the gag orders that were restricting us from telling you the latest of what this violent criminal and serial litigant has been up to. Anytime this repeat offender or serial litigant steps foot in a courthouse, it's a matter of great public interest. Yet Rebel News is the only news outlet that would dare to take on this type of battle for you. In fact, just before tossing the orders, Justice Chan said that Simpson ought not to be allowed to litigate in privacy or secrecy. If you agree, go to our special website called yanivtrial.com to help us recoup the costs for exposing Yaniv, the same violent criminal who has threatened and assaulted our reporters in the past.
Rebel Media. Rebel Media.
Hey!
Hey, keep your hands off me.
I will kill you. You're gonna send another bomb threat to my phone? I'm watching you. Get away from my car.
Do you have any weapons on you?
Go away!
Hey, don't
Go
touch
away!
me.
Don't touch
You're
me.
my
Yo,
resident.
go away!
Don't touch me.
Get out.
Stay away from me.
Go away!
Huh?
My iPad.
Why don't you?
Now.
Huh?
Go away!
Are you
Go away!
crazy?
You,
Go away.
That's assault. Go away! You just smashed your cane over my head.
Will you be pleading guilty? What?
Go.
No, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Stop. Go away from me.
And that's not all. Simpson, Yaniv, has gotten away with sending sexually explicit messages to minors and also has gotten slaps on the wrist in the past for brandishing an illegal weapon, and even got off on destroying the businesses of immigrant estheticians who were uncomfortable with waxing her male genitalia. Despite all of this and so much more, Simpson was able to convince the courts that it was Simpson who needed protection from the public's eyes, thus keeping you in the dark about this menace's latest attempt to take down an autistic journalist named Donald Smith with bogus criminal harassment claims. But not anymore. We hired an amazing legal team with Vancouver's Here and Rowan firm to help us get these unjust publication orders lifted in the name of public interest, and we won. I'm going to tell you all about this in an upcoming report. I'll make sure you know the full story that Simpson wanted buried, as well as more details about this win, why it's so important, and why it's a sign that the trans rights trumps all other rights we've been seeing play out in our legal system may finally be coming to an end. But for now, you should know that achieving this victory did not come cheap. In addition to the security costs we spent to hire 2 bodyguards to be here by my side today at the courthouse to keep me safe from this individual, we also incurred $5,000 in legal expenses to make this public interest victory possible. If you value freedom of the press and our drive to bring you the truth, I humbly ask you to please help us recoup some of those costs. Whatever you can, the cost of a coffee, go to our special website at yanivtrial.com and chip in what you can, because we did it, guys, and we're going to do it again, but we can't do it without each other. Again, that's yanivtrial.com. Anytime this repeat offender or serial litigant steps foot in a courthouse, it's a matter of great public interest. Yet Rebel News is the only news outlet that would dare to take on this type of battle for you. In fact, just before tossing the orders, Justice Chan said that Simpson ought not to be allowed to litigate in privacy or secrecy. If you agree, go to our special website called yanivtrial.com to help us recoup the costs for exposing Yaniv.
So, oh my God, what can I say about this? All right, I will only go through the beat points about Jessica Yaniv. Jessica Yaniv is a transgender woman living in the lower mainland of British Columbia, which is in Canada. Now, she really first made waves because she went into one of those waxing places to get her hair removed. But, you know, there are specific places that will engage in that type of activity for like the arms and the legs and whatever, but you have to go to a very specific specific places in order, because it's a little bit more complicated. There's a lot of sensitive nerve endings down there. Yeah, no kidding. And whatever, you can't just go into a waxing place and ask them to do hair wax removal on your genitals. You know, there's only very specific places that will do that. Well, she walked into this one place that won't do it. And she's a transgender woman, and she basically said, "You're going to wax my testicles or I'm going to take you to court." And of course, you know, the owner of the property has the right to refuse service. And the owner refused service was because the employees did not feel comfortable engaging in that type of activity with her. She took them to court because, in her exact words, they would not wax her balls. And yeah, it's hard to keep a straight face. Well, talking about this person, she took a lot of heat. She took a lot of heat and a lot of flack, and she lost the case. But she is so mentally unhinged that she just is unable. At one point, the Langley police had to specifically go to her house and tell her to stop calling them to issue harassment complaints against her neighbors for whatever reason, because she was doing it so much. And of course, Rebel News was really. She also did a interview with Blair White, which we covered at the time, where she was so full of herself that she actually pulled out a stun pistol, a stun rod. Hold on a second. My throat's getting scratchy here. Pulled out a stun rod, and she flashed it at Blair White during the interview. Except, of course, that you're not supposed to have one of those stun weapons where she lived, and the police showed up and arrested her. The Rebel News has been following her on a consistent basis, particularly the reporter out in BC. She has been abusive and threatening towards this reporter on a number of times. And apparently, while all this has been going on, she had filed a complaint with the BC Human Rights Council, which they never bothered to pick up. And this complaint was filed in 2021. Nothing was done. And then, coincidentally, and this is why this ties into Section 230 and why I'm seeing this everywhere. Out of the blue, almost 3.5 years after she filed the initial complaint, and right around the time that the Canadian government is going around censoring journalists left, right, and center, the BC Human Rights Council just suddenly decides, oh, yeah, we're going to pick this case up now, 3.5 years later. Ezra Levant, it was directed at Ezra Levant and Rebel News. There is financial damages involved. Potential criminal charges can also potentially be laid, but right now it is just a civil case. But Ezra Levant called up BCHRC and told them who it was that they were dealing with. And the excuse that BCHRC gave Ezra Levant was, oh, well, we follow through on every case. We decide on a case-by-case basis whether we're going to follow up on something. And the next question out of Ezra Levant's mouth is, and why did it take you 3.5 years to get around to looking at this particular case? And why is it that you're doing this right around the same time that the Canadian government under Trudeau is trying to crack down on journalists left, right, and center? And of course, it was your typical. A reporter confronts somebody, and the reporter gives them these answers, which don't really answer anything, and just simply create more questions. Looking at it from the outside, looking in, my guess is that somebody at BCHRC, either at the behest of the premier of the province, oh, by the way, there is a BC provincial election happening right now, too, by the way, or somebody at the national level knew about this case and decided, yes, this would be the perfect time to put Rebel News and Ezra Levant on the defensive about something and force him to go to court because we're currently harassing other reporters that are being critical of the government. That's how it looks like to me. Jessica Yaniv, or Yaniv, or however the fuck you want to call it, her, him, is a mentally unwell and insane individual who had she been around 60 years ago, would have been permanently put in a psychological institution and not allowed to leave. But it's 2024 and not 1960. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
What can I say? I'm not overly familiar with this case at all, so I'm just looking at Wikipedia.
Well, if you don't have any, if you're not familiar with the case, you can just pass it on to Roger unless you have something.
Yeah. I think I will.
If you want to, you can make comments on it when I do it, because I know you like to do that whenever I say stuff. So don't worry about it. It's like this is really messed up that you came up with this as a topic. To be honest with you, like I got a kick out of it because like her.
Jessica Yaniv has been at one point when this whole thing with the waxing of the balls was taking place. Like Jessica Yaniv was on our PN for like a consecutive stretch of about 5 or 6 weeks. Continue.
Yeah, and like she also wanted to do another thing. I believe it was. Let me think. It was. She wanted to do freaking a holiday. I think it was, and it ended up being freaking a gimmick is what it was. It was way back in like 2008 on Facebook. I think that was the first time I've ever heard about it, where they wanted to have a National Sex Day, and the campaign was set up to where, I don't know if you remember it or not, but like if anybody freaking supported it, they would send out free condoms on request. All you had to do is ask for a condom, and they would send you one. And back then, it was back when Facebook was still, starting out, and there was like 130,000, 140,000 people that were actually going on there and freaking doing it. And it was actually something that people were falling for, and she just comes out and starts being honest and saying it was all part of marketing and stuff of that nature, just a gimmick so she could get, attention and stuff. And that's the thing with her, for him, it's all just, it's like this mental freaking illness, freaking crazy amalgamated bullshit so that she can get attention on herself. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything serious. It's just her freaking making a complete ass out of herself in order to draw attention. So, like, going in and having somebody try to wax your balls, that when it comes to her, I could see that as being like a gimmick to where she would actually be able to get a little bit of exposure or something like that. I don't think that was like just on a situation that happened. You know what I mean? She did that just to get a reaction, get some kind of thing, because she has been around and doing real weird shit. Like she still, or I don't know if she still does it or not, but she was big on that whole Miss British Columbia pageant thing too, I believe. For a while there, she was talking a bunch of crazy shit on that too. So and I don't keep track on her all that much. So I know that she's wanting to sue the tribunal up there, freaking for something. They said that it had to do with her wanting to get her balls waxed. But apparently, I guess she's going in and trying to get a lawsuit started up against them and stuff. And that's basically the extent of what I've heard from there. But I just, and this is the reason why I say this shit doesn't belong in politics. Like, this is what we're going to start freaking hearing a lot of when it comes to government issues. And we're hearing that shit now, you know what I mean? Why the hell are people freaking talking in debates about freaking transgender bathrooms? That's not even a part of government. They need to just keep their freaking noses out of that shit. I've said it before, my house has a transgender bathroom. I've had it all my life, So,
funny enough, there are a lot of discussions around teaching staff in schools in the UK and transgender restroom facilities at this present moment. I was just looking at the Wikipedia article for Jessica Yaniv, and I know you mentioned about the Blair White incidents, and I see that Yaniv was charged and found guilty in January 2020 for carrying prohibited weapons, and then in December of that same year, I believe that she was also charged and found with according to this, mischief and uttering threats. I don't know. This doesn't say if she was actually found guilty of such things, but also in 2022 she was also found guilty of assault, of attacking a rebel news journalist back in 2020. So I'm just thinking it's just a matter of time that she will be charged and again and found guilty of another. Yeah, be put in a psychiatric wing or in jail if not for protecting society, protecting herself.
Mm-hmm. I think what you were talking about too. I'm not quite sure on it, but I think what it was is she actually went on YouTube and showed a taser on YouTube, and whenever freaking she used it on the video, I guess they arrested her for it. I guess it's illegal in Canada to do stuff like that on the internet. So, but she ended up getting arrested for it. If I remember correctly, it was something to that effect.
Yeah, she was found guilty according to this. Yeah, carrying a prohibited weapon.
I just when it's been a while since I've freaking seen anything or even heard anything about this. It's like, of all people, you know, to come up with this topic, it would have to be Naroki. You know, I wouldn't expect anybody else to think of it, but then here comes Naroki with freaking Jessica Giannis.
Well, I mean, I got covered by the Rebel, which is a legit news agency. It got covered by a lot of alt media. I mean, it's not like this is just like me by myself crusading about this.
Well, I mean, you know, we
Sorry, I was just going to say Rebel News being a legit organisation at the moment, depending on Justin Trudeau. But yeah.
Yeah. Starts coming in and starts taking over shit. Like a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about tonight's kind of falling into that realm. Like you don't know for sure if Rebel News is going to be around very long.
But I'm trying correct to say that there's general elections, federal elections next November in Canada.
No, there's British Columbia is having its provincial election here, like before the U.S. has its election. But it's like literally in the next day or two. Yeah.
Yeah, but next year, next November, there's federal elections as well, I believe.
Yeah, if it doesn't happen sooner.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's all I got to say when it comes to this crazy woman. I know that we kind of drug you out on the whole thing about Caitlin Clark. So I really don't want to talk about a transgender mental case. Even though I do. I mean she actually wanted somebody to freaking wax her balls, you know what I mean? God damn. You don't want me doing that. Just I'd pass.
Sensible.
Okay, all right, then we're done on this one. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, this next one was really interesting. Line in the Sand by James O'Keefe. Yeah, James O'Keefe, as we all know, maybe Mark doesn't know who James O'Keefe is, but if you live in North America, you know who James O'Keefe is. James O'Keefe has exposed a lot of people. In fact, he lost his Project Veritas shut down because he exposed Pfizer, and Pfizer pulled a stunt and got James O'Keefe fired from the company that he started at Project Veritas. And it took a while, but now he's doing O'Keefe Media Group. And of course, Project Veritas no longer exists because James O'Keefe was Project Veritas. James O'Keefe did a documentary about the border situation. And
we got an unaccompanied minor right here, guys. This is heartbreaking right here.
See the handcuffs? Those criminals are being put with the kids?
Yep.
They're putting the criminals with the kids.
Does sacrificing your value system and integrity to feed your family make you a bad person?
They're putting blinders on right now to stop us from seeing what's happening.
There seemed to be an internal struggle between doing what people perceived as the morally right thing and pursuing their livelihood.
You can't move 500,000 children in 3 years if you're asking a lot of questions.
Maybe it's all just human nature. Maybe the powers that be know that.
That is
Let's go. Stop the car. Stop the car. Where are you going? You're very upset.
They're right there. Get down.
You're in the secret facility right now. It's just all about money. There's a car right there. They got ladders. In front of me are all the migrants. We're headed north. It's not about people.
How much money are you making off of this crisis?
$1 billion. Every single agent knows deep in his heart what's going on is wrong.
I know you're just trying to do your job.
We're taking children, we're then delivering them to people who they don't even know.
Okay, what's happening inside that facility?
You know what's happening here?
They all protect each other.
The NGOs.
They got some spotlight on us.
The federal government.
This is dangerous.
I don't think we can trust anybody.
America, we made it. I'm the king of the world.
Follow the journey of the immigrants.
I can't do this, guys.
The journey of the children.
Oh, this is big time, dude.
We're in a cartel tunnel now, dog.
We're in a cartel tunnel. And the journey into human nature. Some things can't be read in a book or a newspaper. They must instead be lived. There's nobody here to stop this. There's nobody. Hello everyone, James O'Keefe here. Breaking news, the Border Patrol agent whistleblower who appears in the film Line in the Sand is under attack by the Customs and Border Protection agencies for allegations of, quote, serious integrity and security policies, and they are calling him into the station this Thursday. Your requested appearance and sworn testimony. They're asking Zachary, come in, quote, you will be questioned regarding your knowledge of alleged misconduct related to, quote, general misconduct and disruptive behavior. They've also taken away Zach's firearm. They say in this letter, it is determined that in the best interest of Customs and Border Protection to temporarily revoke your authority to carry a government-issued firearm. Zach signing that letter, John 3:16 out of the Bible, but also this request to come in on Thursday. Title 6 Special Agent Adam P. Austin. Adam Austin, I don't know who this Adam Austin is, some type of federal agent. This comes after Zachary talked about in the film Line in the Sand, all the little girls getting trafficked. They don't take biometric information. Zach making his conscience clear, speaking, telling the truth, much like many of the other agents talk to us in their Border Patrol cars. It's unclear why they're targeting Zach and what, quote, general misconduct, disruptive behavior actually means, because we spoke to a lot of Border Patrol agents in their cars in the video, so we're not sure what's going on, but this could possibly be retaliation. We have a foundation called Citizen Journalism Foundation that's currently helping lawyers get Zach a lawyer, paying for legal bills. To support whistleblowers like Zach and the OMG team, please go to O'KeefeMediaGroup.com, click support us, donate to Citizen Journalism Foundation. It's tax deductible. There's going to be more whistleblowers coming out. We're going to have Zach's back, and we're going to be reporting on this hearing October 17th, 2 p.m., United States Border Patrol Station in Newport, Vermont. We're calling on local citizen journalists to show up outside the station and report on what's going on. Stay tuned. What's happening inside that facility?
You know what's happening here?
They all protect each other. The NGOs.
They got some spotlight on us.
The federal government.
This is dangerous.
I don't think we can trust anybody.
America, we made it. I'm the king of the world.
Follow the journey of the immigrants.
I can't do this, guys.
The journey of the children.
Oh, this is big time, dude.
We're in a cartel tunnel now, dog.
We're in a cartel tunnel. And the journey into human nature. Some things can't be read in a book or a newspaper. They must instead be lived. There's nobody here to stop this. There's nobody.
Right now, you got a cease and desist letter, and we've been speaking to a lot more Border Patrol agents who are going to come forward, but I have some breaking news for you here this evening. Inspired by what Zach did and what Tara did, we actually have someone working for the federal government who attended this film, and she is right now live with you here right this minute, about to blow the whistle on her federal agency. Come on up. Working for GSA, she became aware of contracts for the transportation of unaccompanied children. I recognize this is very emotional. Come on up. I recognize this is a lot, but if you could just say a few words about what you've seen and what you feel.
Well, of course, I work for GSA, and I became aware a couple of months ago during a meeting that GSA had a contract that was transporting unaccompanied minors. And I wasn't aware, you know, I just go to work. But all that said, you know the saying that you don't know what you don't know, right? Well, see, now you do know, and you cannot unknow what you know now. And the last thing I want to say is, there's another saying. It takes a village to raise a child. No, not true. It takes a village to protect a child. We have to protect our children. And the only reason why I'm here is because that's my duty now. I cannot unknow what I know now.
God bless you.
You're a hero.
This is the cast and crew from Line in the Sand, and we're going to go to an after event after this, Citizen Journalism Foundation. We got many Border Patrol agents that are about to come forward. Thank you all for attending. I'll see you afterwards. God bless you.
What is really revealing to me about the border situation is not the fact that they're being willfully ignorant about the border back in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, ties into Kamala Harris, who is, even though the mainstream media was telling you that she wasn't the border czar after telling us all for a couple of years that she was indeed the border czar, yeah, it's called gaslighting, folks. James O'Keefe decided to go and look for the border himself, including, by the way, joining up with a group of Mexican border jumpers and jumping the border in Mexico and coming across himself. He also did this up at the Canadian side. What he discovered was, and I mean, I haven't looked at everything around this, but what really blew my mind is the fact that in one particular situation down in Mexico's Mexican side, he was with a group of Mexicans, and they were going across the border, and there were Border Patrol agents within sight of them doing it, and they did absolutely nothing. And apparently what happened was that the people who were in charge of this group said, oh no, they've been paid off. James O'Keefe also had a whistleblower up near the Canadian border, up in Vermont. That particular whistleblower, when he came public, is now facing public scrutiny from his employer, even though there are clear rules written about whistleblowers inside the government about revealing some of the situation. By the way, the Canada-U.S. border is incredibly porous. There's a lot of places along the Canada-U.S. border where you can literally just walk across. There's very little patrolling. It's a really long border, for one. So it's really hard to keep that border locked down. And also, and I will be straight up with you, there's not a lot of Canadians trying to run the border to get into the United States. Because I worked at the U.S. Consul General, and the people that are in Canada that are for the most part that are trying to get into the United States are people who are from other countries other than Canada trying to get into the U.S. for the most part. Pardon the burp there. When he started looking into one of the things he discovered, and this is the part that was really disturbing, because we all, like I say, we have all of the stuff that's going on in D.C. with them ignoring what's going on at the border, and with potential terrorists having either crossed or will cross the border. and that there's apparently sleeper cells, and we have Venezuelans in Aurora, Colorado, that hold multiple apartment complexes under thrall and that sort of thing. When James O'Keefe, and this is the part that really got to me, interviewed Border Patrol agents, a lot of the Border Patrol agents said that in a lot of cases, and this is a big situation with a lot of enforcement going on, at least in the United States, probably in Canada as well, is that they are not being paid particularly well. You know, these are people on your border. These are people securing your country, and you're not paying them compensatory wages for their job. And I mean, these are people that you have on your board to potentially look out for, terrorists, for instance. And because they're not being paid particularly well, certain cartels are bribing the security agents to allow people to cross. Now, I would say this is tragic and this is something that has to be looked into, but I mean, I can't help but wonder if this is being done on purpose, because again, I haven't seen the full movie yet, but I mean, again, and here's the part that really gets me. Of course, most of the major theater chains are refusing to run it, and they're having a very hard time distributing it to a lot of cities and whatever, just like they did with Sound of Freedom. And it's kind of freaky, because it's not just the people in DC that are being willfully ignorant about the situation. There appears to be a move up and down the line to make sure that the agents themselves, like the Border Patrol agents, aren't being paid enough. And they know damn well that there's people down in Mexico that will quite happily pay these Border Patrol agents tens of thousands of dollars to ignore refugees going over the border. And yeah, I'm going to stop short of saying this is being done on purpose, but it sure as hell looks like it's being done on purpose. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Okay, I remember James O'Keefe. I was watching a lot of the Veritas reports back during the COVID lockdowns and pandemic, and also, yeah, I am well aware of it. Even though I'm not aware of this film, I was actually looking at I think it was a streets map of the US and UK, US and Canada border not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago actually, and I noticed many bridges that were that was easily accessible between the two countries. And it made me think that as a British person, if I wanted to illegally enter the US, it would be so easy for me to go to Canada and enter that way. Not I would, but in theory, it'd be fairly straightforward. As far as immigration is concerned, illegal immigration is concerned, well, all I can say is that the UK has quite some problems, as I presume you both are aware, especially since since Labour became the government. Labour in this country promised that they would restrict migration, would stop or reduce hotels for illegal immigration, paid at the taxpayer's expense, and they've actually in the last couple of months they've actually increased the numbers coming in, and they were their mantra during the before the election was to stop to prosecute and limit or stop the illegal gangs. And how many illegal gangs have they stopped since they've become in power? 0. So they've actually, arguably, they are encouraging even more illegal immigration into the UK at the moment. So, yeah, my point is really this is happening throughout the Western world. So it's happening in the UK, it's happening in Europe, mainland Europe, it's happening in the US, Canada, and the only country that seems to have rigorous means of stopping this is Australia at the moment. Yeah. Also, there was this entire idea before during the Conservative leadership government, previous Conservative government was to send all illegal, make a deal with Rwanda and ship a load of illegal migrants over to Rwanda. And because of human rights lawyers, it never got anywhere. And Labour was obviously was the party that said, well, this was illegal under international law, human rights reasons, and so forth. But it's only been announced in the last couple of days that the Labour Party in the UK is planning to ship illegal immigrants over to Centralia Island. So the same island that we imprisoned Napoleon back in 1815. So yeah, as far as Labour is concerned in this country, they're just full of double standards and hypocrisy. But yeah, you're going to find this throughout the Western world at the moment. Really. Yeah.
Okay, Roger, you're up.
Okay, so just so everybody understands where Rwanda is, okay? Rwanda is in the dead center of freaking Africa, okay? I'm sorry, dude, but you're not going to send my ass to freaking Rwanda. I don't care who you are.
But you're not an illegal immigrant in the UK.
I'm still saying, dude. You know what I mean? And it wasn't just illegal immigrants either. They were freaking wanting all of these people who were freaking fleeing from Ukraine during this war they're having. They wanted to freaking send them to Rwanda too. For some reason, Rwanda is the spot.
Yeah. One point, the UN Convention on wartime immigration states that that the refugee or the UN Convention on Refugees states that the refugees have to reside within the next peaceful country that is nearest to their own country.
Rwanda is the closest country.
Yeah, no, but to get from Ukraine to Britain, how many countries do you have to go over? You've got to go over Poland, you've got to go over France.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, I'm thinking like freaking there has to be like another country that would be closer than Rwanda, dude. You know, it's just like,
well, yeah, but that's immaterial. The issue is that they all entering in from France. Is France a war-torn country at the moment?
France, if anything else, France should be the one keeping them. You know what I mean? It's like that. I think that's exactly what the issue is, isn't it? The fact that these illegals are coming across the freaking the channel right there from France into England, and you guys aren't stopping them.
I was reading an interview with I was watching an interview with the Polish president, just yesterday, and they now implemented a measure which the EU absolutely hates and could cause a lot of issues. But as far as Poland's concerned, they are stopping all illegal immigrants from entering the country. And if necessary, they've armed their border force with live ammunition.
Yeah, see, here in the United States, the thing that people fail to understand is like they've been doing this for a long time, where they honestly don't stop illegals from coming across the border. Okay, like they've even set up stations now in the desert to where they could stop and get water. You know what I mean? So they don't dehydrate and die. And like the ICE officers actually cannot freaking physically do anything to these people. Like they cannot like force them to turn around and go back. They can't do it. They've got to let them in, and that's something that's been happening now since freaking the beginning of the 2000s. You know, and it's something that really it's not something that's new that just started up, and that's the one thing I always try to bring up. Like now, all of a sudden, everybody's noticing this shit, and it's been an issue to a lot of people in freaking the conservative parties, like Republicans and stuff here in the United States, but nobody, you know, really brings it up and makes it a serious issue until here lately.
It's interesting you mentioned 2000s because arguably this all started off with Blairism.
Yeah.
Tony Blair in this country.
See, you'll understand eventually, sometime or another, that freaking it's what I was saying is true. It's like the English have this freaking agenda where they want to control and dominate the world. And
I'm not sure if it's the English. I would argue that has more of a corporate technocratic.
That would be England.
Not necessarily England. I mean, Klaus Schwab's not English.
Well, that's because England has Klaus Schwab's in the EU in their pocket. You know, it's like they got it all. It's theirs. And well, the thing about it is that globalism is what it really stretches out to. You'll see a lot of that going on. You'll get this whole, all of this stuff is just information that's being rehashed from old bullshit so that they can stir up freaking hate and get freaking different factions arguing and fighting with one another. And the more you and Joe Blow over here argues and fights, the freaking easier it is for them to get what they want done. You see what I mean? Because they can.
It's the old thing: create a problem, and then introduce a solution to the problem that you've created.
Mm-hmm. and then they can feed off of your anger and your hate and your resentments and your prejudice, and they can actually get more stuff done that they want done because freaking they've got you angry and upset.
The old Orwellian 2 minutes of hate.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, you know, that's the thing that I see from it. That's why I think when it comes to a lot of this border patrol stuff, and you missed one country that has a better border patrol. That would be Cuba. They know they take care of their borders really well. I
would think more westernized countries. That's why I mentioned Australia.
You know,
Australia is a good one.
But see, people don't want to mention that because that horrible freaking country, Cuba. You know how bad they treat their people. You know, they force them to freaking have to sit in their houses while doctors go from house to house and give them freaking medical examinations. How horrible is that?
Once upon a time, that used to happen in the UK. Not when I was growing up. It was fairly easy to get a GP, general practitioner, to visit the home.
No, well, no,
yeah.
You don't have any say in Cuba. They just send them out and they go from door to door. So they'll you know, things of that nature. But they have an excellent freaking border patrol. I mean, if that's what we need to do. We need to lock our borders up. We need to freaking force everybody to freaking go and be checked by the freaking hospitals and make sure they're healthy and stuff. And you know, have these doctors go door to door and check every single house.
Just thinking on to add an ironic thought. Think about having doctors forcefully going to house during the COVID lockdown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have we? I think we've covered this one. Can we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right. So the next one. Okay. Well, yeah. There's a little bit of election coverage here. Just like I said, 404. There's going to be a ton of it. The big thing that occurred with the election race right now, and I actually took a look at the no dead heat map. I tried to copy it, but unfortunately I couldn't. The no toss up map has Donald Trump. They've recently flipped all of the swing, literally all of them. At the time when I did this, it was still Wisconsin, but there's Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. And all but one of those states had in the last week or two have all gone back to being red. If they weren't red already, Georgia and North Carolina and Arizona have been leaning strongly red right from the beginning. They were never blue. That's probably the best way to describe them, but it was close. Recently, and this is probably because Kamala, again, because the the mainstream media just cannot stop propagandizing. The alt media is gaining again, and I knew this was going to happen. The alt media is becoming the go-to source for a lot of people now, not the network news. And what's happening is that every time Kamala gasps, that she keeps making, well, she just seems determined to cackle her way out of the presidency. And literally what's happened here is that when we saw this, I mean, Biden was going to lose. They brought in Kamala. There was a honeymoon period with Kamala. And as we have gotten through August and into September and now into October, the lead between Kamala and Trump has gotten narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower. And now it's at the point where Trump, well, I mean, even at her peak of her popularity, it was still kind of going to be a toss-up as to whether Kamala Harris was going to win. But now the way it's looking right now is that Trump is going to have over 300 electoral votes. I won't go into the details of it, but the only thing I'm going to say about this is that the reason why Kamala Harris is losing this election and why she was able to blow the quote-unquote lead that she had was because of Kamala Harris. You got to understand something for those of you who don't follow U.S. politics. Kamala Harris did try to run in 2020 as a Democrat nominee for president, and she didn't get a single solitary vote. And Joe Biden made her the vice president anyway, even though Kamala Harris did not get she did not get a single solitary electoral vote during the primaries to be the Democrat nominee. And they're trying to pass her off now as a legitimate alternative to Joe Biden, when the fact of the matter was that for most of the last 4 years, Kamala Harris was even less liked than Joe Biden. And and in particular, since we were just talking about the border, she was known as the border czar until she suddenly became the Democrat nominee. And then the mainstream media kept saying, well, she was never the border czar. Literally, I saw one example where a reporter at one publication literally called her the border czar, and then 2 years later comes out with another article that says that she was never the border czar, even though he had written an article, rather ironically, a few months earlier saying specifically that she was. And this is the internet, and if you're going to do stuff like that, people are going to notice. So yeah, I understand that there's some very mixed feelings about Donald Trump, but if I had to pick between Trump and Harris, I would have taken Trump. But then again, I don't vote. I'm not American. So, but yeah, Kamala Harris has succeeded in beating Kamala Harris, and now Trump has to be considered the front runner for the election in November. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
There's two stories that stood out to me from just last week. I think 4 days ago, 3-4 days ago, Harris was actually in a public PR thing, and can't remember which state it was, but she was pandering to the, let's say, the more hardline Islamist, pro-Palestinian, dare I say, pro-Hamas lobby, and saying, suggesting that if she came into power, she would try her best to give more power to Palestine or Hamas, which again is a terrorist organization, and I believe in Canada and also in the UK is that Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organization. The other story, as I've just referenced in chat here, just yesterday there was a LinkedIn post promoted by the head of operations at the UK Labour Party, suggesting that the Labour Party are going to ship out 100 activists to actually promote Harris's campaign. There's a question about if that's illegal, because under US federal law, you can have another country and coming in and as long as they volunteers to support a U.S. Candidate, but just think what would happen if Russia tried to do this. No doubt, if Trump does win the elections, the Democrats will actually start screaming that it will be Russian interference. So where does the line stop? Is it okay for the UK to interfere in a foreign and sovereign country's election, or is it not right for Russia to interfere in a sovereign country's elections? Again, a lot of hypocrisy, but that's the story of Labour's lifetime at the moment. But who knows? As the old saying goes, it's not over until the fat lady sings. So we won't know until 3 weeks' time.
Racist. That's horrible. You just said horrible things about fat ladies.
No offense, of course, to any.
I'll tell that to my fat sister.
Is she a good singer?
Yeah. No. But when you were talking about that stuff, that reminded me of actually quite a few things. That's a good point to bring up when it comes to all of this. Like this Democratic convention that they had when they were doing that. And I'm not pro-Palestinian, I'm not pro-Israeli, just before I say all this stuff, because I don't want to get everybody thinking that I'm one side or the other, because I'm not. But I did notice one thing about that when they had that convention. I thought that these protesters that went down there actually had serious issues with the frickin' the elections going on. Like, for me, my big problem is the fact that, like Naroki was talking about with Kamala frickin' didn't have to do anything in the primaries whatsoever. She was just, it was like she was streamlined completely through the frickin' the political parties election process, where she skipped that completely and they just set her in as candidate and everybody fell in behind it. And I thought maybe these people would have an issue with it. Black Lives Matter even freaking said they weren't going to support her because freaking they felt that was questionable, that it was questionable how she actually became the Democratic representative. And that was one of the issues. There were other ones, don't get me wrong, but that was a big one that they had. But all these other people, man, just kept their mouth shut and went right along with the party, and that's the same thing that freaking what's his face, Bernie Sanders did whenever he got ripped off on his election in freaking Nevada. They literally ripped him off in Nevada, and he would have been running against freaking Donald Trump instead of Hillary Clinton. But you know what he did? He shut his mouth and he went along with it. He not only did that, but he handed his money, or his supporters' money, over to the freaking Democratic Party, who they had been fighting against through that whole primaries. And people who were serious Bernie Sanders freaking supporters were serious when they said they hated Hillary Clinton. Okay, they were dead serious when they said that shit. And what did he do? He took all of their money and he gave it to the freaking party that freaking they were fighting against. But in this one, this was the weird part, because those protesters didn't have anything to do with that. What they had to do with was freaking, they were over there protesting about the stuff happening over in freaking the Middle East. had absolutely nothing to do with freaking with the actual elections taking place. And when I found out even more, I found out that because it happened here in Chicago. I'm in Illinois, but in Chicago, man, they were busing them in from different states. Okay, these weren't even people from this area that were doing the protests. These were people that were being bussed in from Philadelphia and shit like that. You know, and that's something that I find pretty fucked up. You know, it's like and what they do is they one hand washes the other. It's not freaking people that actually care about the Middle East. It's people who are wanting to do favors for this group or this group. You come to my protest and I'll come to your protest, kind of thing, you know. And that's the way they work, and that's the one thing that really stuck out to me whenever you guys started talking about that stuff. So that's about all I can contribute to this stuff, because I really it just annoys me when I have to get into this kind of conversation, you know.
Yeah, okay. Just one point I want to bring up. You mentioned that the thing about alternative media. I'm thinking, again, I haven't got any stats on this, I haven't got any numbers on this, but the percentage of media viewers made up by newspapers, radio, internet, or TV are still there's still a preference for legacy media. There's still a preference for mainstream media. And sure, there is quite a large amount of people that will watch alternative media or will consume alternative media, but in reality, mainstream media has still got the sort of dominant position there. But saying that has made us look foolish, even in the mainstream. It doesn't matter how the mainstream can manipulate these things. People have got eyes, and they've got their own sensors. Yeah.
And Kamala's a slut too.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing, man. Naroki understands that. He was all quiet until I said it like it was. She's just a slut, dude.
Oh, she is. You're not going to get any argument from me about that.
Yep. I know. And it's true. She's just I mean, like, everybody that I've had conversations about that woman about always brings that fact up, and you know what? Every single one of them's right about it. Like, and this woman freaking has never denied anything, but she's never admitted to it, you know. But she's never denied any of it. She's never said in public, "Look, man, I've never done that a day in my life." You know what I mean? And that right there is actually kind of scary, because at least freaking most people are freaking liars. You know what I mean? But she's smart enough to know not to freaking lie. She just doesn't answer. You'll never find any place where she actually says she's never done that stuff, ever. I've looked. I haven't found anything.
Oh, and you won't with her. You know, you won't. Period. It's, you know, I don't know why when Biden stepped down, why they just didn't extend the Democrat convention for another couple of days and have a mini primary. You know, instead, no, they just selected Kamala Harris, and it was like, you know, even though, and I'm going to point this out because we have Robert F. Kennedy actually had, because I remember for months and months and months, for years, actually, we were talking about, do the Democrats have anybody on their side that even has a chance against Trump? And nobody mentioned anything about Robert F. Kennedy until Robert F. Kennedy. And keep in mind, Robert F. Kennedy is still a Democrat. He's still a liberal. I mean, but he's more like a classical liberal. And same thing with Tulsi Gabbard, as opposed to that other faction inside the Democrat Party, which is the same group of people in the Democrat Party, which would be the same type of people in the Deep South and in the South in the 60s that would quite happily appeal to the KKK and racists to win votes there. There's actually very little difference between those two groups. Like very little at all. And unless somebody else has anything more to say, I'm gonna move on to the next topic here.
Just one minor point. It's interesting that you talked about them classical liberalism, because me and Rogers have had plenty of discussions about the US doesn't. A lot of people in the US don't understand the difference between classical liberalism, self-determination, free market ideology, and progressive liberalism. It's just an interesting point to consider, to think about.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the last topic here. Okay. So a few months ago, we had what amounted to Gamergate Part 2, where Sweet Baby Inc. was, and of course, well, I won't get into how Sweet Baby Inc. got in right away. But Sweet Baby Inc. was hired on as a consultant for all of these video games being developed. And their role as a consultant was to bring diversity, equity, and inclusion into the video games. And the video games just sucked rocks. They were killing it. It was basically the same thing was happening with video games that was happening with the movies, and they were getting worse and worse and worse. And it finally got to this one where I believe it was the Teen Titans, where it was just absolutely awful. And then somebody down in Brazil noticed that when he went through the credits, somebody needs to mute themselves. Ed, Mark, I think you might have to mute yourself because I was hearing an echo. I noticed that all of these bad games, all of these woke games, there was a consistent group of consultants that were being hired for all of these games. And when he looked at who their employer was, he noticed that they were Sweet Baby. And then he went over to the Sweet Baby site, and there was this massive list of companies that had hired Sweet Baby. And the reason why they had hired Sweet Baby is because they needed money from, and this is going to come as a massive shock to everybody listening, and maybe even to Mark and Roger here, but you're getting a lot of their funding from BlackRock-backed corporations. The part of the deal with getting money from these corporations to develop these AAA games is that they had to hire DEI consultants, Sweet Baby, and they were killing these games off. So, they started naming all of these companies that had hired Sweet Baby, and it was basically, if it got to the point, and of course there was all the usual doubling down and grandstanding by Sweet Baby and whatever, and it didn't really work. And what started happening is that one by one, these companies just canceled their contract with Sweet Baby. And it started happening again and again and again and again. And eventually this whole thing just kind of blew over faster than Gamergate did. But the Sweet Baby Inc. website kept the names of the clients that they were still working with up at their page. And what was still going on, though, is that people were still going back to the Sweet Baby page. And if another company or corporation signed on with Sweet Baby, they would become known. Basically, they would be known as Sweet Baby Confirmed, and it would be affecting their sales. So they would either ask that Sweet Baby didn't list them as consultants, or they would just cancel the contracts altogether. So having Sweet Baby connected with any game you were developing was risking your bottom line. And these gaming companies were pulling out. And what happened finally was that Sweet Baby figured out that the only way they were going to stay viable is if they hid their client list. And that is exactly what they did. The new Sweet Baby Inc. website no longer lists the AAA gaming companies that have hired them as consultants. All of the information about the employees that work there, you have contact information for them, but there is no longer a list of what company they are currently consulting with. The website became a lot more streamlined, it became a lot more basic, but what they basically did is that they took off their client page. So you don't know whether a game hired Sweet Baby unless you intentionally, when you buy the game, go back and look at the credits, and you have to look for specific names. And Sweet Baby did this because they had to stay commercially viable, because if they didn't do that, if they publicly announced that they work with these companies would be risking their game not getting sold properly or being undersold or whatever. So, yeah. The thing that I can conclude from this is the fact that Sweet Baby pushback actually did work, whereas opposed to, say, what happened with Gamergate. And I cannot believe that Gamergate was 10 years ago already, where Gamergate didn't necessarily achieve the impact that it did. This time, this one, it has. Like, the DEI faction inside gaming cannot just step out into the open like they can, say, in Hollywood or in a lot of other fields. And again, even if they do, like HRC, Robbie Starbuck, any company that takes on DEI right now, the same thing is going to happen with the HRC website eventually, where they're just going to remove it, because any company that gets associated with DEI is going to find themselves on the backside of a boycott. So, yeah, you're seeing a significant pushback against DEI. And that's not to say that the DEI push is over, but they're being a lot more subtle about it, and they're being a lot more careful about it. Although, again, right, for a lot of companies, it's already too late. Disney specifically comes to mind. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
I was just thinking about other companies, such as, I don't know, banking institutions and other companies within the sort of area, and how many contracts Sweet Baby Inc. has got with those organizations. So I think it is a much more what's the word I'm looking for? Much more ingrained issue here, and I can make arguments about human rights departments and academia in this, but that's going off the point a bit. But I was also thinking about in the UK, where we've got organisations like Hope Not Hate and Stonewall. Don't get me wrong, I consider Stonewall to be once was a good organisation. They pushed on the LGBT, the trans and gay issues back in the 90s, and aided in a much more tolerant society. But in the last 20 years, they've become a much more, I don't know, socialist organisation. And I'm just looking at Stonewall's own site here at the moment, and I'm looking at corporate partners, and I can see names like Barclays, Sky Sports, Pandora, whoever they are, and various other companies coming up. So I'm just thinking that yes, these there's going to be less acknowledgement of these I don't know, I'm going to call them left-wing socialist organisations, lobby groups. There's going to be less transparency. There's going to be less public relations between these organisations and the sort of corporate backers, but these organisations are not going to die anytime soon, because they need to survive, because a lot of what they were set out to do has already been completed. So what's the purpose of them now? They've got to keep going, as the companies or the organisations will just disappear, and and if you are let's say a shareholder of Street Baby Inc. or a shareholder of Stonewall, you're just going to lose money. So it's in the interest to continue, and granted, a lot of companies do not want to be known to be associated with them, but because of climate, they are going to be associated with them. Just so it is at this present moment. Roger, any views?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that sticks out to me, and we talked, or I mentioned a little bit of it last time I was on, was this word equity and shit. You know what I mean? And that's something that we went through on our show when I was talking about equity firms and shit. And people don't understand what they mean when they say equity. You know, like equity is like it's the quality of being fair and impartial. That's what they call it. You know what I mean? And like when we were talking earlier on the gaming show, that we were talking about like all the terminology they have for all this new freaking cross-platform gaming and shit. You know what I mean? Where they want it to be fair and equal. You know, where people can game together in a safe environment, free from freaking cheaters and all that. And it sounds like that, and it sounds all good and great, and like we're all just sitting around being happy, you know, freaking hanging out by the fireplace and cooking freaking, you know, those, what do they call them damn things? You put them on a stick, you know, fucking marshmallows. and singing, you know, campfire songs and shit. But the truth of it is that's not what it is. They're using that as a way to freaking control, you know, and use it as an agenda. And that's what it comes down to when I look at that stuff. I just get this, you know, nothing is ever written in stone with these people when it comes to the gaming communities. They never are, you know, and it's always suspicious, but it's never enough for freaking having proof on them. You know what I mean? Oh, they're just out to freaking it. You know, when you look at it, it just looks suspicious. And I've been around the gaming community for a while, so I mean, I've seen a lot of it, you know, and they make it out to where it's supposed to be freaking safe for children to game in a freaking gaming community and all this crazy shit. And you just look at it and it's more control that they're trying to impose on it. Like, why the hell do I have to get on a cloud server to play a freaking game when all I have to do, if it was like it used to be, is go down to a freaking video game store and buy the damn thing out of the store, you know? At what point did they say that freaking it's better for me to go on the internet and freaking sign up for a freaking cloud server, which is exposing my computer and my network and everything to the freaking hackers and everything like that? What makes that a better alternative than freaking going down to freaking a game store and buying a freaking game personally at a game store? You know, it's just complete insanity, and people are falling for this crap, and they believe that it's true. You know, I just, I do have my issues when it comes to all that stuff, but it's this thing with Sweet Baby too. I believe they were also involved in doing scripts for games as well. And that's another aspect that you have to look at too. Like, we were also talking about shitty games, okay? And that's what these are. A lot of these games are getting pushed out into the gaming industry are just crap great games. They aren't even smart enough to freaking create their own scripts for their video games when it comes to storyline, okay? They have to hire people out to freaking come in and do it for them because they're too stupid to freaking do it themselves, okay? Everything I've done in streaming, I had to do myself. Me and Rapid were talking to another guy that Pseudo, he calls himself Pseudo, and he actually freaking mentioned about hiring somebody to come in and do editing, and me and Rapid just went freaking silent, dude, because it was like not one time in the whole time that we've ever freaking done videos, video games or anything else, have we ever freaking thought of having somebody else come in and freaking do it for us, because we've always done it ourselves, okay? And you take a look at all these big freaking people out there who are freaking making video games. They're these big streamers. We were talking about Mr. Beast, you know, all these are rich freaking people, man, who can pay people to do their work for them, and then they put out this shitty content and they freaking promote it. You know what I mean? And that's what they do. And that's the way this whole freaking franchise, or however you want to call it, this whole industry has been set up. And that's what they're doing. If you take a look at the video games from 10 years ago even and compare them to the ones that we got now, they're crappy. They're freaking horrible. You know, and they have control. These people have control over the companies that are doing the scripting and stuff like that. And they're saying, look, man, if you want us to freaking do this, you're going to have to freaking do this. We're going to have to start talking about equity. You know, we're going to have to start talking about fair play. You're going to have to start doing this woke shit, or we're not going to support you. And that's what they're doing. They're putting them on lists. And after freaking you get on that list, then freaking you get recommended. And if you aren't on that list, you're not recommended. And that's just basically the way it goes. They've been doing that for years in the gaming industry. So I'm done.
A couple of things there. As we discussed in the last stream, in reality, nobody has ever owned, when they've purchased a game, they've never owned the game. They've always owned the license to use the game. So yeah, I back in the 90s, 2000s, go down local Radio Shack and pick up a CD, or back in the 80s, pick up a tape or with games on it. You don't own at the time, you never owned the games. You owned the right to use the content. Which goes back to things like the Federation of Anti-Software Theft and so forth, copyright laws and so on. And obviously, it is getting worse now because you don't even own the physical media that the games are stored on. They are being downloaded by some platform as a service, so-called cloud provisions. When it come to equality, I'm going to do another Orwellian quote. Everybody's equal, but 4 legs are better than 2. But everybody's equal.
It's just horrible. That's just horrible, Mark. I'm done with all that stuff. I'm so tired of hearing about equity. It's pathetic. I mean, here in the United States, we've got them freaking commercials and on thing, and I'm not like everybody else. I'm not like, oh man, you're being brainwashed by television. I have no problem with watching TV. If I'm not sitting in the computer doing something that I have to do with my shows, I'll go in there and I'll glance at it every couple minutes when I have a chance, so. But
hence your fascination with Heartlands.
Yeah, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Don't forget Buffy. But anyhow, my whole point is like they're pushing that shit out everywhere. They actually had a freaking commercial on, or they've been having it on since it's so close to the elections. Because I'm here in Illinois, they're saying that don't believe the misinformation on the internet because of what you're watching on the alternative media and sources and stuff. Contact your local politician for the proper information so that you can get the real story. So I'm supposed to contact a politician who is supposed to tell me the truth.
Wasn't this Justin during Australian previous Prime Minister or New Zealand previous Prime Minister during the COVID lockdowns? Didn't she release a press statement saying, trust us, the government don't believe in any other news reports, trust us, the government, we will tell you the truth and just believe us.
That's exactly what it was, and that's what they're doing now. That's one of the reasons why it sticks out to me every time I see it, and it's always on. Like they're pounding you over the head with it on these commercials, and nobody even pays attention to that. They don't care. It's like freaking they don't understand that you're being bombarded with this crap all the time.
It's funny that the BBC was proven in UK to, I think a couple of weeks ago, was proven that over the Israel-Palestine war, they was biased in favor of Palestine 150 times.
It's crazy.
And they have yet to answer for that.
I'm going to stop talking about it because I know Naroki's getting ready to go to fall asleep. It's got to be past his bedtime. He's like...
It's well past my bedtime here. It's, this is about the time I usually turn in. Well, I mean... kind of happy because basically with Sweet Baby scrubbing its site like this, that's at pretty much them conceding defeat without them actually saying it. It's what the only reason they would have done that is because there was enough economic pressure put on them that it was no longer in their best interest to have their clients up on their page. Period. And there's no dancing around that one. Especially, and I find this rather ironic, because they had the Space Marine 2 game came out, which didn't have any Sweet Baby consultants on it, and it's doing quite well, even though it's not really my type of a game. That's really all I got to say. So if anybody else has anything more to say, I'm going to end it because, it's 12:30 here. I got to get to bed.
No, I'm good to go.
7:30 over, so yeah.
7:30 in the morning in England right now.
Yeah.
So
the sun's just coming up.
I'm done. I'm glad I was here with you, man. It was a good show.
Indeed.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's it for tonight then, folks. We will see you. I will be back in the city, and I will be in the process. Well, actually, I'm thinking probably if I do it Friday, if I do the show on the regular scheduled day, which is currently Friday, I will. It will be probably the only thing I will do because the first couple of days I get back in, I'm just gonna just veg and only do what I have to do just because I need the downtime. But that is it